Seth Rollins just dropped the most devastating bombshell in professional wrestling, and I need you to understand something right now before you click away or dismiss this as clickbait or assume I'm exaggerating for views. This is real, this is happening, and the implications of what Seth Rollins has announced are going to fundamentally reshape WWE's entire landscape for years to come. The architect, the visionary, one of the most decorated superstars in modern WWE history, a guy whose main event WrestleManias held every major championship, carried entire brands on his back, and been the absolute backbone of WWE programming for over a decade, has just announced that he's not coming back to WWE. And before you start typing in the comments that he's just working us, that this is all part of some elaborate storyline, that there's no way WWE would let someone of Seth's caliber walk away, I need you to hear me out because the evidence is overwhelming, the timeline makes perfect sense, and the reasons behind his decision are so much deeper and more complex than anything you've probably considered. What makes this situation even more infuriating, what should have every single WWE fan absolutely livid right now, is that this didn't have to happen. WWE management had multiple opportunities to prevent this, they saw the warning signs, they knew Seth was unhappy, and they chose to do nothing until it was too late. So if you're sitting there thinking this is just another wrestling controversy that'll blow over in a week, if you believe that Seth will be back on Raw next month like nothing happened, or if you're one of those people who thinks that WWE is bigger than any individual star and can easily replace someone like Rollins, then you need to stick around for this entire video because I'm about to shatter every single one of those assumptions with facts, with timeline evidence, with insider information that's been circulating for months, and with a breakdown of exactly why Seth Rollins announcing he's not coming back to WWE is the biggest disaster the company has faced since the departures of major stars in the past. Let's start from the beginning because to understand why Seth Rollins is walking away from WWE, you need to understand who Seth Rollins is to this company and what he's meant to WWE's success over the past decade. When The Shield debuted back in 2012, three relatively unknown guys coming through the developmental system, nobody could have predicted that all three members would become generational talents who would define WWE programming for the next 10 years. Roman Reigns obviously became the face of the company, the guy who held the Universal Championship for over 1,000 days, the final boss, the tribal chief. Dean Ambrose, who became Jon Moxley, left WWE and helped launch AEW into mainstream consciousness, proving that there was life and success beyond WWE's walls. But Seth Rollins, Seth was always the workhorse, the guy who could do absolutely everything inside that ring and outside of it. He could work any style with any opponent, he could cut promos as a babyface or a heel, he could main event or work the midcard, he could carry inexperienced talent to good matches, and he could have classics with the best workers in the world. WWE knew this, they relied on this, and they exploited this. Think about Seth's career trajectory for just a moment and you'll realize how much WWE has asked of him and how little they've given back in return. He was the guy who turned on the Shield, who became the Authority's golden boy, who won the Royal Rumble, who main event WrestleMania and walked out as WWE World Heavyweight Champion. When Roman Reigns had to step away due to health issues, who did WWE turn to? Seth Rollins. When Raw needed a top babyface to battle Baron Corbin in an endless, soul-crushing feud that damaged everyone involved, who took the bullet? Seth Rollins. When WWE needed someone to have a dream match with AJ Styles, with Finn Balor, with Kevin Owens, with literally anyone on the roster, who was their go-to guy? Seth Rollins. When they needed someone to reinvent themselves with a new character, new entrance, new everything, who delivered the visionary? Seth Rollins. This man has given everything to WWE, he's defended the company publicly when fans criticized it, he's worked through injuries that should have sidelined him for months, he's accepted every single creative direction they've thrown at him whether it made sense or not, and he's done it all with the expectation that WWE would eventually reward that loyalty and dedication with the respect and treatment he deserved. But here's where the story gets ugly, where the cracks started showing, and where WWE's management completely fumbled what should have been a lifelong relationship with one of their most valuable assets. Over the past 2 years, as Triple H took over creative and as WWE entered this new era that everyone's been praising is so much better than the Vince McMahon years, Seth Rollins has been systematically deprioritized, overlooked, and disrespected in ways that would make any performer question their value and their future. Despite being one of the most over acts on the entire roster, despite consistently delivering in every segment and every match he's given, despite the crowd reactions being undeniable evidence that fans care about Seth Rollins, WWE has treated him like an afterthought in their long-term planning. He's been left off major premium live events, he's been given storylines that go nowhere, he's been used to put over talent who weren't ready for that level of push, and perhaps most insultingly, he's watched as guys who haven't accomplished a fraction of what he has been positioned ahead of him in the pecking order. The breaking point, and this is where you need to pay close attention because this is where everything fell apart, came during the recent contract negotiations. Seth Rollins' WWE contract was coming up for renewal, and like any smart businessman, any performer who knows their worth, Seth went into those negotiations expecting WWE to recognize his value and compensate him accordingly. He wasn't asking for Roman Reigns' money, he wasn't demanding to be positioned as the face of the company, he was simply asking for a contract that reflected his contributions, his consistency, his professionalism, and his marketability. And WWE, in their infinite wisdom, in their complete disconnection from reality, offered him a deal that was not only below what he was making before but included restrictions on outside ventures, merchandise percentages that were insulting, and creative control provisions that essentially gave him zero say in how his character would be used. Seth looked at that offer. Seth considered everything he'd given to WWE over the past decade, and Seth made the only decision that made sense. He said no. Now here's where WWE really screwed up, where their arrogance and their belief that they're bigger than any individual star led them to make a catastrophic miscalculation. Instead of recognizing that they were about to lose one of their most valuable performers, instead of going back to the negotiating table with a serious offer that reflected Seth's worth, WWE essentially called his bluff. They assumed that Seth, like so many wrestlers before him, would ultimately cave because where else was he going to go? What other option did he have? WWE is the biggest wrestling company in the world, they have the most money, the biggest platform, the most exposure. Surely Seth Rollins wouldn't actually walk away from all of that over contract terms. Surely he'd see reason and accept their offer. Surely he valued being a WWE superstar more than he valued his own self-worth and his financial future. And that's when Seth Rollins, in the most boss move imaginable, announced that he's not coming back to WWE. The announcement itself came not through some big press conference or through a WWE-sanctioned interview but through social media, through Seth's own platforms where he controls the narrative and where WWE couldn't filter or spin his words. He posted a statement that was professional but firm, respectful but honest, thanking the fans for their support over the years but making it crystal clear that his time with WWE has come to an end. He didn't bash the company, he didn't air all the dirty laundry about contract negotiations, he didn't burn bridges in some spectacular fashion. He simply said that after careful consideration, after evaluating all his options, after thinking about his future and his family and his career, he's made the decision not to return to WWE when his current deal expires. The wrestling world exploded, social media went into meltdown, and suddenly everyone was scrambling to figure out what this means for WWE, what it means for Seth, and what it means for the entire professional wrestling landscape. Let me break down exactly why this is such a disaster for WWE, why they should be in full panic mode right now, and why this decision by Seth Rollins exposes some serious problems with how WWE values and treats their talent. First and most obviously, they're losing one of their best performers, someone who can work with literally anyone, someone who makes everyone he works with look better, someone who can be plugged into any storyline and immediately make it more interesting. That's an irreplaceable skill set, and finding someone who can do everything Seth does at the level he does it is going to be nearly impossible. WWE can try to convince themselves that they have enough depth on the roster, that they can elevate someone else to fill that spot, that no individual star is bigger than the brand. But the reality is that losing Seth Rollins leaves a massive hole in their roster, particularly on the Raw brand where he's been a cornerstone performer. Second, and this is even more damaging to WWE's reputation and their ability to sign and retain top talent going forward, this sends a message to every other performer in that locker room that no matter how loyal you are, no matter how hard you work, no matter how much you give to this company, WWE will lowball you in contract negotiations and assume you have nowhere else to go. Think about that for a second and consider how that affects morale, how that affects the mindset of guys like AJ Styles, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, all these veterans who have been WWE loyalists but who are watching Seth Rollins walk away and thinking that maybe they should be exploring their options too. WWE has created a situation where their top talent now knows that the company doesn't actually value them the way they claim to, that all the talk about appreciating their superstars and wanting to build long-term relationships is just talk, and that when it comes to contract negotiations, WWE is going to play hardball and assume they have all the leverage. Third, and this is the part that should terrify WWE management, Seth Rollins is exactly the kind of performer who will thrive outside of WWE in ways that will make the company look foolish for letting him go. He's young enough to have several more prime years in the ring, he's creative enough to reinvent himself and build a character that doesn't rely on WWE's presentation, he's smart enough to leverage social media and build his brand independently, and he's talented enough that every other wrestling promotion in the world is going to be throwing money at him to come work for them. AEW would obviously love to sign someone of Seth's caliber, and while I know some of you are rolling your eyes at the idea of Seth showing up in AEW, think about what a massive coup that would be for Tony Khan and how devastating it would be for WWE to see one of their homegrown stars, someone who came through their developmental system and became a main eventer entirely within WWE, jumping ship to the competition. But beyond just AEW, Seth has options that previous generations of wrestlers never had. He could go to Japan and work for New Japan Pro Wrestling, having dream matches with Okada, with Ospreay, with all the top talent there and making more per appearance than WWE was offering him annually. He could work the independent circuit, commanding huge money for special appearances and building his legend by having incredible matches on shows around the world. He could focus on building his non-wrestling ventures, his businesses, his potential entertainment career, all the things that WWE's restrictive contract would have prevented him from pursuing. The point is that Seth Rollins doesn't need WWE the way WWE assumed he did, and that realization is going to hit the company hard when they see him succeeding and thriving outside their system. Now let's talk about what WWE's response has been to this announcement, because their handling of this situation has been absolutely baffling and has only made things worse. Instead of publicly acknowledging Seth's contributions, thanking him for his years of service, and wishing him well in his future endeavors, WWE has essentially gone radio silent. No official statement, no tribute package on television, no acknowledgement that one of their biggest stars is leaving. It's the ultimate disrespect, the kind of petty vindictiveness that proves Seth made the right decision in walking away. WWE wants to pretend like losing Seth Rollins is no big deal, like they can just move on without missing a beat, like his departure won't be felt across their entire programming. But fans aren't stupid. We can see through this transparent attempt to minimize the situation, and the longer WWE stays silent, the worse they look. Behind the scenes, according to multiple reports from reliable sources in the wrestling media, WWE management is scrambling to figure out how to spin this situation to their advantage. They're trying to work out whether they can turn Seth into a villain in the narrative, whether they can claim he was unprofessional or difficult to work with, whether they can somehow make this his fault rather than taking responsibility for their own failures in the negotiation process. But here's the problem with that strategy: Seth Rollins has been nothing but professional throughout his entire WWE career. He's never been involved in backstage drama or controversies, he's universally respected by his peers, and trying to trash his reputation now would only backfire and make WWE look even worse. Some people within WWE reportedly wanted to do a storyline where Seth's character gets written off television in some humiliating fashion, getting beaten down and destroyed as a final middle finger on his way out the door. But cooler heads apparently prevailed when they realized that would only generate sympathy for Seth and anger toward WWE, turning him into a sympathetic figure and making the company look petty and vindictive. What makes this entire situation even more frustrating is that it was completely preventable. WWE had so many opportunities to avoid this outcome, and their failure to do so reveals some fundamental problems with how the company operates in this new era. For all the praise Triple H has received for improving WWE's creative direction, for making storylines more coherent, for pushing talent that fans actually want to see pushed, he's apparently learned nothing about talent relations from Vince McMahon's mistakes. Vince had a terrible track record of letting major stars walk away over contract disputes, of assuming WWE's brand was bigger than any individual performer, of treating talent as replaceable rather than as the actual draw that brings fans to the product. And now Triple H and the current management team are repeating those exact same mistakes with Seth Rollins, proving that maybe WWE's problems go deeper than just who's in charge of creative. Maybe there's a fundamental arrogance in the company's culture that prevents them from properly valuing and compensating their talent. The fan base reaction to Seth's announcement has been overwhelming, with the vast majority of people expressing sadness and disappointment rather than anger at Seth himself. Fans understand why he made this decision, they recognize that WWE failed him, and they're directing their frustration at the company rather than the performer. Social media has been flooded with messages of support for Seth, with people thanking him for years of entertainment, with fans saying they'll follow him wherever he goes and that WWE just lost one of their most loyal viewers because of how they treated one of their best stars. This kind of organic fan support is exactly what WWE should fear, because it demonstrates that Seth has the kind of connection with the audience that transcends any company, that his value doesn't come from the WWE brand but from his own talent and charisma and work ethic. Looking ahead to what comes next, the wrestling landscape is about to get very interesting very quickly. Seth Rollins will eventually show up somewhere, whether that's AEW, Japan, the independent circuit, or somewhere completely unexpected, and when he does, he's going to remind everyone exactly what WWE is missing. He'll have incredible matches, he'll cut passionate promos, he'll show that he didn't need WWE's platform to be successful, and WWE will be forced to watch as one of their biggest homegrown stars flourishes outside their system. Meanwhile, WWE is going to have to figure out how to fill the massive void that Seth's departure creates, how to replace his contributions to their programming, and how to prevent other top stars from looking at the situation and deciding that maybe they should explore their options too. The biggest question now is whether WWE will learn from this disaster or whether they'll continue making the same mistakes with other talent. Will they look at losing Seth Rollins and realize they need to change their approach to contract negotiations, or will they double down on their belief that the WWE brand is bigger than any individual performer? Will they treat their remaining top stars with more respect and compensation, or will they continue lowballing talent and assuming they have nowhere else to go? The answer to these questions will determine whether Seth Rollins leaving WWE is an isolated incident or the beginning of an exodus of top talent who realize they don't need to accept whatever WWE offers them. What I need from you right now, what I need you to understand as you're processing all of this information, is that this moment matters for the future of professional wrestling. How fans respond to Seth's departure, how we support him in his next venture, how we hold WWE accountable for their treatment of talent, all of these things will influence how other wrestlers approach their own careers in contract negotiations. If we show WWE that we'll blindly support the company no matter how badly they treat their performers, they'll keep doing it. But if we demonstrate that our loyalty is to the wrestlers who entertain us rather than to a corporate entity that sees those wrestlers as expendable, maybe it'll force some actual change in how WWE does business. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about Seth Rollins announcing he's not coming back to WWE? Do you support his decision? Are you angry at WWE management for letting this happen? Where do you want to see Seth go next? And are you going to continue supporting WWE after seeing how they treated one of their most loyal and talented performers? This is the conversation we need to be having right now, because Seth Rollins leaving WWE isn't just about one wrestler making a career decision, it's about the future of the entire industry and whether top talent will continue accepting whatever terms WWE dictates or whether they'll start realizing their worth and demanding to be treated accordingly.